大家好. Excuse my poor Chinese. Today we have a very special guest, Paper Patrick. You probably know him on TikTok, where he has over 1 million views. But he actually moved abroad to teach English in Japan. And that's how I got started with my move abroad journey. Actually, I moved to China to teach English, and it all went a little crazy. I won't lie. So we're gonna have him on the show to talk about one, how do you move to Japan, maybe some of the cultural differences that you might find there. And thanks so much for tuning in during my lunchtime. I see he has arrived in the chat. There we go. Here we go. Come on, Patrick. It'll be like meeting an Instagram, no, a TikTok famous star for the first time. Hi!
Hello, hello. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing great. I
Can you
brought
hear me?
my yeah, you're loud and clear.
Okay.
I brought my Chinese cup to celebrate like people moving to Asia, teaching English, just like taking a chance on themselves. Oh, we are buffering.
Oh,
Oh, you're back. You
yeah.
there?
Okay. I think so. I hope so. Can you hear me?
Oh, okay. Yes, I can. Let me know if it's me buffering because it might be my internet versus yours.
Okay.
Sound good?
Uh, it sounds good. I'm not sure if there's a delay. Um, Usually when I
A
FaceTime or
slight
Skype with
delay.
people, there's like a delay. It's probably my my Wi-Fi, honestly. I let me. Is this? How's this?
I'm gonna try to take my internet off data real quick. You're buffering. Come on back.
How are we doing now?
Okay. Yeah, we're doing perfect. There we go.
Okay. Okay. Good. Okay.
Great. Well,
I
thanks
think.
so much for being on the show, Patrick. You're dialing in all the way from Tokyo.
Hmm.
Could you give everyone a little introduction of yourself and
Sure.
what you're about?
Yeah. So hello everyone. My name is Patrick and I'm an English teacher. Oh,
Oh
buffering
no, now it's
again.
buffering.
Ah,
I know. Let me take mine off of Wi-Fi. Okay.
okay. Mine
So
off.
now I'm
Yeah, just a second ago. Okay. It
okay.
seems like it's okay. Okay.
Yeah, we're
Okay.
doing our best.
So yeah, we're trying. We're trying. Um, so yeah, I teach English in Tokyo, Japan. I've been in Tokyo specifically for about 1 year now, and I've been in
Wow.
Japan overall for about 6.5 years. Yeah, 6.5 years. I used to live in Sendai, Japan, which is up north. I was there for 5.5, and I've been here in Tokyo for one. And actually, before that, I was teaching in Beijing, China. I taught there for 3 years. So
Shut up.
that's,
What
yeah.
years? That's I was there.
Um, I was there from 2011 to 2014.
We would have crossed paths then. Where did you live in Beijing?
I was in the Haidian district.
Yep, yep. Okay.
I was like
I
right next to. Mhm. Sorry,
oh,
I was right
I was
next
just gonna
um, oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, I was in those like foreigner like Liang Ma Chao, like not
Mm.
creative area. I lived on the blue line, Liu Fang. There we go. I had to
Oh
practice
yeah,
my
yeah, yeah.
tones to get home regularly.
Yeah. The
So
tones are
you were
no
in
joke.
Haidian Lao?
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. My school was right next actually to what was it called? The subway stop uh uh was it Heidi Zhonghua, I think. Maybe I might be mixing up names. It's been a while, but Heidi and Huang I forget.
It's
But
okay.
we were right next to like I think it was a pretty popular stop,
Mm,
like subway stop. So there was lots of like malls around my school and everything. I lived on the campus of my school actually, so
mm.
um, it was a pretty hopping area.
Yeah,
Um, Yeah, I really miss
So,
China. I loved it there.
I'm so happy to hear that because I get a lot of questions
Yeah.
about how different the culture is. I studied
Mm,
Chinese and I can really only order food now. So useless,
mm,
Vanessa. But I'm
I've forgotten
hoping
so much
this,
too.
it's all right. I'm hoping our discussion will encourage more people of color to move abroad to places that are totally different from what we
Yeah.
know. And I love
Hmm.
that your content talks about like Black culture and Black issues in the
Hmm.
context of how children interpret the world and how
Hmm.
they process that information. But I'm getting ahead of
Yeah.
myself. Let's back up. Why did you move abroad?
Good question. So, basically, when I was in, yeah, when I was in college, like late, like my last year of high school, senior year of high school, early college years, I began to just develop an interest in Asia. Kind of specifically Japan, but it kind of grew to just Asia in general. I just was really fascinated with Asian cultures and the different languages. And so um, I sought out a way to get to either to Japan or Korea,
Mm.
because I had just started to get into K-pop as well a little bit. I
BTS.
I was a K-pop fan before BTS though. Like BTS wasn't even like a thought when I was into K-pop at the time. It was yeah, it was like groups. Well, this is besides the point, but groups like CM Blue, I was into CM Blue and like Shiny, some
Mm-hmm.
Girls' Generation, Super Junior, like kind of like older stuff that probably most K-pop fans nowadays don't really know. But
Mm-hmm.
um but anyway, so I went to, so I was seeking a way to get to Asia, and I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to get to Japan specifically. I decided on Japan,
Mm-hmm.
and I looked for a trip. Like my university had these different trips during the summertime to different countries, and to do like volunteer work basically. You'd raise money and you'd go to the countries and do volunteer work for about a month or so.
Mm-hmm.
And I was looking for one for Japan, but there wasn't one for Japan.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, well, I guess there's one for China. China's pretty much the same thing as Japan, so why not? Which is like absolutely, absolutely not
No,
the
I
case at
was
all.
about to
Like,
say, don't let anyone hear you say that.
I know, I was just gonna say, people get offended if they would get offended if they knew that I was thinking that at the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's totally not what I think now. Just FYI, everyone, I don't think that's the case at all. But at the time, I was ignorant and didn't know any better, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna go to China. And so I went to China for a month, and I loved it. Like I
Mm-hmm.
was not expecting to like it as much as I did. I was like, man, forget Japan. Like I love China. I want to go back to China. Not quite forget Japan because I was still definitely interested in Japan, but
Yeah.
I just really developed a really deep interest in China during my time there. And so after I graduated from college, it's kind of a special situation. My school had a relationship with a number of schools in China, like high schools
Mm-hmm.
and universities. Um, so much so that those schools in China would accept people from my university to come and teach at their schools, regardless of what they studied.
Amazing.
As if you came from the university, my university, then those schools would accept you as a teacher.
Which
So
uni
I
was it?
applied. It was a school in Ohio called Cedarville University.
Mm-hmm.
I don't
Mm-hmm.
know if you know of it.
Ohio,
In
Tokyo coming
Ohio,
together.
yeah, at that time, I guess Ohio and Beijing, yeah.
Oh, yes, you're right. My bad.
So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I don't know if they had any connections to Japan, but so I went there, or I applied for that program. I made it into the program and taught in China for 3 years, and I loved it. And then interestingly, while I was teaching in China, my older
Mm-hmm.
sister was teaching in Japan, in Sendai, Japan. And so I was able to take some trips to visit her during my
Mm-hmm.
time in China and saw what Japan was actually like and saw her school in Sendai and loved the school and decided to then um, transition to Japan after I finished a third year teaching in China. And so I did that, and I was in Sendai for 5 years, 5.5 years, and then I last year moved to Tokyo, and that's kind of where I am now.
Mhm.
So
And
yeah.
were you a career like educator? Like, did you know you wanted to teach all your life? Did you study it, or did you kind of just
Hmm.
fall into it?
I definitely fell into it. I had
Mhm.
no desire growing up to be a teacher. I never envisioned myself in the education system at all.
Mhm.
Um, and so, yeah, it wasn't, and even when I was teaching in China, I didn't really think, oh, this is something that I want to continue doing. It wasn't
Mhm.
until I was in Japan teaching, because in China, I was teaching middle school and high school only.
Mhm.
In Japan, everything shifted primarily to younger children, elementary age, and sometimes kindergarten students. And that was where I really kind of realized, oh, I enjoy teaching children. Like I enjoy
Mhm.
working with children at least. So this is something that I actually would consider doing, and I've been doing it ever since, teaching kids. Yeah.
That's awesome. I did not have a similar experience. I thought I
Hmm.
loved teaching kids. I was wrong.
Oh,
But
wow. Okay.
I'm more
Quite
like
the
high
opposite.
school level. Yes. And so I
Hmm.
think if I were to do the teacher thing again, I would go for like high school level English or like speech and debate, something where it's a little bit more complicated to hold myself responsible, really. Um,
Hmm.
so I have a lot of people who are our age. Can I ask you how old you are, by the way?
Sure. Yeah. It's just a funny, it's like it's a joke with some of the people that I do streams with on my Twitch account.
Mm,
Because people ask me about my age all the time because they're always like, you say you've been teaching for this many years, but
mm.
I guess I don't look as old as maybe I should be if I've been teaching that long. So I just tell them, oh, I'm a 500-year-old vampire. The joke is that I'm just 500 years old, but I'm actually 33 years old.
Okay, great. So I'm turning 30
Hmm.
in a couple of months, so look forward to
Oh,
that anxiety attack.
yeah.
Um,
Been there, done
yep,
that. Yeah,
yep. But I
you'll
have a
get
lot of
through it.
people, oh, I appreciate it. I have a lot of people who take my Move Abroad masterclass and they're our age, so 30 something, and they're like struggling with the idea of restarting their career abroad because
Yeah.
they are doing a pivot in their industry or maybe considering teaching English abroad. And there's
Hmm.
almost like a crisis of age there where
Hmm.
teaching abroad or even moving abroad is for the young, single, and just like
Hmm. Hmm.
adventurous mind. What would you say
Yeah,
to that?
I would say that's absolutely not the case.
Mm,
Obviously, there are more younger people who are seeking
mm,
that, and trying that like seeking that adventurous life of trying living a life in a new city, a new country. Teaching English to kids in different countries is really popular amongst like younger people, like
mm,
college age people who are thinking about what to do. A lot of people who don't know what they want to pursue after college think, well, I could teach for a year or two in some other country. So it's like it's something a lot of people want to do when they're younger, but it's definitely not something that is only for people in that age range. I think it's definitely something that you should do no matter how old you are. If you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s, like do it because the experience, it just is such a valuable experience. You learn so much about not only whatever country you're in,
mm,
um, whether that's the language or the culture or whatever, but you learn a lot about yourself. You grow as a person so
mm,
much by
mm,
taking that experience. And so, and that can be whether you're 50 years old or 60 years old or in your 20s, it's totally
mm,
doable for anybody. So don't let that sort of feeling like an outsider because there maybe aren't as many people in your age group who are doing that,
mm,
don't let that stop you from doing it because
mm.
you definitely should if that's what you're interested in. If you're curious about it, like seek it out, see what you can do with it.
Yeah, and you have no idea what that's going to lead you in your next
Yeah.
like career or life path. So I ended up
Mm-hmm.
in China as a 21-year-old. I met a boy at a beer pong tournament in 2014.
Mm-hmm.
Ended up falling in love with him, and he took me to the United
Mm-hmm.
Kingdom, and we've just moved to Germany
Oh.
now. So
Yeah, you're in
following my
Germany. Okay.
heart, Yeah. Following my heart has
That's
like
so
led me
cool.
all over the world. Following my
Yeah.
career has led me all over the world. So if you are concerned
Hmm.
about starting again in a different country with a different language, don't be, because I would argue we stand out a little bit in Asia. Would you agree?
Oh yeah, totally. Totally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And how have you
Most definitely.
navigated being
Hmm.
so visibly different and like kind of being an
Hmm.
ambassador for like Black travelers abroad? How's that been?
Hmm. It's been really interesting. Yeah, I would say when I was in China, obviously, because you've been there before, you know the
Mm.
staring is intense. Like they
Yep.
just, if they see something that's different, they will stare. If they see someone who looks different, they will stare even harder.
Mm,
Um, and there's like no shame in it almost.
mm,
Um, and so it makes you feel really self-conscious, but you kind of get used to that, the just the constant amount of eyes on you.
mm,
When I moved to Japan, strangely though, I feel even more self-conscious when I get stared at here, even though there's
mm,
less people who do it, because Japanese people are more subtle. They're more like Americans in that, if you're staring at someone and they catch you staring, you kind of
mm,
look away and then maybe like peek back a little bit. But in China, they just stare. Like it doesn't matter if
mm,
you see them or not. They'll just keep staring at you and like talk to their friends and um, that whole system of curiosity is just very different in China than it is in like the US or even Japan. But I
mm,
think because Japan, I just feel more self-conscious as an individual, not only with just like my appearance, but with like the language,
mm,
with knowing the different customs and
mm,
picking up on different cues and missing those cues sometimes. I'm
mm,
always like nervous about that here. I'm not sure why. I think it's maybe because I don't know, there's just such a deep like um there's two things in Japanese culture, in terms of like how you relate to people when you're in public.
mm,
There's tatemai, which is like how you how you should act when you're with people.
mm,
You should be bowing, you should be respectful, you should be doing all these different things. And then there's I think it's honne, which is how you really feel. And
mm,
so um, Japanese people are very polite, very, very polite people when you're in public. When you're in restaurants, they're going to treat you very well. Customer service is like top notch. But
mm,
then that's not always how the people who are serving you are truly feeling. They might be like annoyed about something. They might be something might have happened that morning that threw their whole day off. But because of the culture or the
mm,
cultural expectation for them to be polite and put the other person before them, they will,
mm,
act very polite and respectful towards you.
mm,
Which I mean, it's nice to have that, but a lot of Japanese people, when you really talk to them about um, what they wish was different or
mm,
where they would go if they could go anywhere in the world, often they say like the US. And when I ask them why, like sometimes my high school students in the past would say this, um, in Japan, they would say, oh, because I want to go to the US because the US is free. And I would always say, well, aren't you free here? Like you're free. You can do things that you want to do here. And they would say, no, like I can't. If I'm feeling, upset about something, I can't express that. I have to be polite. I have to nod. I have to wait for, senpai to do something first. I have to greet the senpai. I have to, which are like the upperclassmen or like people who have been in
mm,
a position before, like more years than you. And so
mm,
there's a lot of that. I'm kind of going way off topic, but let me regather my thoughts and connect it back to the point. So I think because of all that, I'm a little more self-conscious here in Japan of how I do
mm,
things. As
mm.
we're in China, even though there's more stairs, it's just like not kind of like everything goes in China, but it's just like kind of is like the Wild West sometimes up there.
Yeah,
Um,
we would call it the wild, wild east. And like when something would happen, we'd be like, why did that happen? Because China, and there would be no explanation, but as a foreigner living there, you would totally get it.
yeah,
What?
exactly. It's like because China.
Because China. Why was my visa canceled when I was in the country? Because China.
Just lots of really unique challenges that you don't get as
Yes.
someone living in your home country. And for
Yeah.
me, that required a real like creativity, flexibility. I think I
Mm-hmm.
became more like a better version of myself because I wasn't such a
Mm,
control freak all the time because it
mm.
didn't didn't matter. China was going to do what it wanted to do.
Yeah.
How has it been
Yeah.
to like establish a community for yourself there? Like I
Mm.
see online you have local friends, but do you also have foreign friends as well? How does that work?
Yeah. So I do have a few Japanese friends that I've made here in Tokyo since moving. It's difficult to establish really good friendships with Japanese people because um, they're very reserved, and
Mm,
so it's not as easy for them to open up to someone they don't know. Like
mm,
you never really exchange names when you first meet a Japanese person. It's like it
mm,
takes a while to get to that point where you exchange names as opposed to the US, where that's like the first thing that you share with someone, like, "Hi, I'm Patrick. What's your name?"
mm,
And so you kind of have to really work at it to make a friendship last in
mm,
Japan. And thankfully, I have been able to get a few like real friendships with Japanese people since moving to Tokyo. Because when I moved here, I didn't know anybody except for
mm,
a couple people who had also moved from my old school to Tokyo. But I've yeah, I have friends still in Sendai, like a lot of American friends who are there, who I chat with all the time on like um, through text messages and Line and
mm,
stuff. Um, and I've made some like foreign friends here in Tokyo as well. I've been able
mm,
to meet a number of people and establish um, a relationship with them, which is nice because it's nice to have someone who understands your culture and who you
mm,
can kind of vent to about things sometimes. Um, and that's really important for anyone who is trying to live abroad somewhere. It's like
mm,
almost crucial to have a group of people who you can talk to about things that maybe the locals wouldn't quite get because it's just a difference of cultures.
mm,
Um, Not everybody has that, and a lot of people who don't have that really struggle with their time abroad.
mm.
So that is something that thankfully I've been able to obtain here, and it's made a big difference.
Yeah, moving abroad can be kind of lonely the first time because you're unsure of yourself, you're in a new place, you're just trying to get your residence permit and like your apartment together, like let alone
Yeah,
friends and like have a community there. The second time
right.
is a lot easier. Like when I moved to London, I was like, great, this is how I do this. This is how I assimilate and meet people and build a community for myself. And now I'm on like
Hmm.
my fifth move around the world.
Oh
So
wow. Okay.
yeah, it's pretty much
Fifth
turnkey.
move.
I just turn on my Instagram, be like, okay, expat in Japan, expat in Berlin, wherever I am, I will find someone who
Yeah.
will be my friend. Uh,
You will find them.
yes, and they will love me just as much as I love them. Let's pivot a little bit to finding work abroad, because
Hmm.
I know that this is a big concern for people, like the ability to support themselves financially and like start
Yeah.
to gain some stability. So
Hmm.
when you're searching for jobs in the country that you're in, or even internationally, what is the setup there?
What's the setup in terms of what would you look for
Yeah, how do you start the
in a job?
process?
How do you start the process? Um, well, in the country that I'm in now, Japan, it's there are a lot of different avenues you can take to find work. The most difficult one being probably just like going out and searching, like literally searching for openings, putting in job applications in person. That's you have to like know the language for that,
Mm,
for the most part.
mm,
The thing that most foreigners do, like people who aren't in the country yet, or people who have made it to the country, but they're trying to
mm,
seek something new, or sometimes people come without a job,
mm,
um, maybe like with a spouse or something, and they have to search for something that way. Um, there's something called gaijinpot.com, which is what I used to find my current job when I was leaving
mm,
Sendai. Um, and it's a website that's catered just to foreigners. The word gaijin is like outside person, like outsider.
Mm.
So this website is made for foreign people who are looking for jobs, or they have a section for apartments. They have like different resources to help you kind of get your feet on, like get a landing and kind of
Mm.
get up on your feet and get going.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I just typed in what I was looking for, the type of job I was looking for, the area I wanted to work in, and from there you could just see the results, the listings of jobs that were that fit that criteria basically. And
Mm.
so I applied to a number of different schools that way, and found one that was a good fit for what I was looking for, and um, yeah, they accepted my resume and my general application and everything, and the rest has been history. Now, when I was moving from, I told you a little bit about China and
Mm.
how I got that job with that specific program. When I was moving to Sendai, my first job in Japan, I my sister again was teaching at the school in Japan while I was in China, and I visited her there and kind of met her bosses, and I was helping her out with like an event they were having, like a field trip. I just kind
Mm.
of shadowed her that day and helped a lot with the different stuff the kids were doing, and her bosses were really just impressed with how I was really ready to get involved with the stuff going on. And they
Mm.
said, if you ever want like a job here, please let us know. We'd be happy to have you. So it was a really like smooth kind of transition. It wasn't too difficult for me to land that job.
Mm.
So honestly, for me, it's kind of been not that complicated finding work. I do
Mm.
know it does get really difficult for some people. And a lot of people do ask me in my DMs, how can I work in Japan? How did you become an English teacher? And I always direct them to websites like Gaijinpot. I always just
Mm.
say gaijinpot.com. That's the one I use. And there are others like it that exist, but that's the one that worked for me, and I know it's worked for a lot of other people too.
Mm.
So
Would you be able to comment with that website after this so I can pin it to
yes.
the
Oh,
top?
after.
Awesome. And
Yes, I
yes,
can.
this is going to be recorded so everyone can watch from the very beginning when we struggled with the technology and
Yeah.
finally got it going.
Hmm.
Could I ask you about your work package? Like, are you on a work visa? Did they set you up with an apartment, or how did that work?
Hmm. So my visa is it's a 5-year visa, which is kind of rare for
Super rare. What
um,
is that? That's Visa
yeah,
Gold.
it's like, yeah, it's like I think it's called like specialty in humanities and something. It's like a long name, a long title.
Mm.
Um, and I got that through my old school
Mm.
in Sendai. They have like a really good standing, I guess, with um, government people or whatnot, so they were able to grant those kinds of visas to the teachers there.
Mm.
And been able to retain that visa here. Um,
Amazing.
and my package, um, my school doesn't really have like a package. It provides you with a job. Um, in terms of like an apartment, I guess is what they don't like. They don't group that together with the work or the
Hmm.
getting the job. A
Hmm.
lot of schools do kind of have a apartment readily available for you to move into when you get the job and move to the country. That's
Mm.
really common for a lot of jobs, a lot of teaching jobs, anyways. Um, and for me, there was not an apartment that was um, grouped with it, but there was a
Mm.
teacher who was moving out at the same time or just before I moved in, and so they worked it out for me to be able to take her apartment.
Mm.
Um, so I didn't have to really worry about much, thankfully,
Mm.
because it's really difficult to find an apartment in Japan, like extremely difficult, like unbelievably difficult for foreign people.
Yeah.
Foreign people have just all the difficulties. Um, Randomly, also, or I guess maybe coincidentally, I got an apartment, signed a contract for an apartment just last week. So I'm moving out of this place at the end of this week to my new apartment. So I'm really
Yeah.
excited for that. Going to upgrade to a bigger
Amazing.
place and yeah, more space. Um,
Good for you.
but Sorry, what was
Could I
that?
ask you, so in Spanish we call
Yeah.
it chisme. Could I ask you a little bit of chisme? How is the dating
Okay.
scene in Japan? Because when I
Hmm.
was in China, I tried to date Chinese boys and they were terrified of me and never wanted to practice
Mm-hmm.
my Chinese with them. They always wanted to speak English with me. So I ended up finding a German man that
Oh.
speaks Chinese. And
It worked out.
yeah, it did work out. So how is the
Mm-hmm.
dating scene in Tokyo or in Japan in general?
Mm-hmm. It's I'm probably not the best person to ask because I haven't really dated while in Japan.
Mm.
Um I've sought dates a few times and kind of not really been successful. But
Mr. Patrick.
I I think it's because a lot of Japanese girls kind of similarly are really I mean, I think there's like a lot of Japanese girls are drawn to foreign guys,
Mm,
but they don't usually like because of just the culture and how reserved they are,
mm,
they don't ever like indicate that they're interested, or
Yeah,
rarely
it's
do they
tough.
indicate that they're interested. So it's more on like the guy to initiate
Hmm
or to show interest in them.
hmm
Um, and me just being a more like, I don't know, I'm like a very relaxed, kind of chill, go with the flow kind of person, slash, like, don't ever want to upset people. So I'm like, I just kind of like do my thing and
hmm
um, I don't know, I never, not as, I've never been like too nervous to say something to a girl, but I've never like thought, oh, let me try and put the moves on this girl and see how she's feeling. Because I'm like, I'm just gonna like do my thing. She can do her thing, and if
Yeah,
there's something, then maybe there's something, and if not, that's fine too. And
yeah,
so, I think that coupled with the fact that I'm very much a homebody, I enjoy being home and just kind
me
of,
too.
doing my thing at home. I'm not
Mm,
really out seeking people to do fun things with,
mm,
or even really, I'd love to like date somebody, but I'm not like actively seeking that. So, um, based on what I know from other people who have been more active in that scene, I do
mm.
think it's kind of difficult for foreign people. I think it's probably, I don't know if I would say it's more difficult for foreign girls or foreign
Oh,
guys,
it
but
is. It is.
um,
I'll say it. The joke in Beijing was
I
always
believe it.
like the poor foreign girls because like the Chinese women were so beautiful and stunning and well educated. They're the whole package. So if you're a
Hmm.
foreign woman coming in like mid 30s looking for a longtime partner, it would be
Hmm.
hard to compete with um both
Yeah,
the local Chinese women who are stunning, beautiful, everything, the whole package, but also like stunning
yeah.
young foreign women as well. So that's why I
Mm.
went when I was under 25, grabbed one and ran away. Uh,
Smart. Good
yeah,
thinking.
that was my strategy. But I will say, as a foreigner dating, the bubble is small when you're abroad in Beijing, in Tokyo, wherever. Like foreigners know foreigners, so don't be
Yeah,
like
yeah.
me and try to date three people at one time and get caught. Um,
Oh no.
I know. I just got
Yikes.
there like 3 months in. I'm just like, this is a candy shop for me. But there are
Candy shop.
it was unreal. I am domesticated now. I'm an indoor cat, but 21-year-old Vanessa was living her best life
Different
in China.
person.
Different. I don't know
Mm.
her. I'm celebrating 4 years of marriage in like a month and a half.
Well,
Um,
congratulations, by the
Thank
way.
you. I appreciate
That's
it.
really cool.
But if
Hmm.
you are a foreigner dating abroad, one, the circle is really small, and two, you're going to meet a lot of really incredible people from all over the planet with so many different stories, so many different backgrounds. It's going to be an
Hmm.
incredible experience for yourself. So go single and have a good time. Uh,
Hmm. Yeah.
well, Mr. Patrick, we are coming up to the end of our live. Can I ask you if someone is thinking about moving to Asia and they are Black, Brown, or someone who's incredibly culturally and visibly different from the
Hmm.
local population, what
Yeah.
sort of like words of encouragement would you give them?
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, I would say definitely don't let that stop you from like the fear of being different and sort of being othered, because there are going to be times that you will be othered. Like as great as a country that Japan is, like there are times when you feel your foreignness kind of playing a negative role in your experience. Um, Obviously, the staring will happen, but also, I mean, there are, like I was saying about the apartments, like that is a difficulty that foreigners face because we're different. We're not Japanese. But there are so many great things about living as a foreigner somewhere in whatever country. Again, you learn a lot about yourself. You grow so much. Um, and you really get to experience a lot. And if you go back to your country, you can bring that back with you and share things about that country and things that you've learned about yourself with people back home. And the people that you make your close friends in that country, whether they're from your same culture or whether they're locals, because you're foreign, it almost like makes you have to be more intentional with those relationships, and it makes them so much stronger, your friendships. And you really value the people that you meet and that you become friends with, and you can really like, I don't know, it's a very like
soul bonding
what's the word I'm looking
experience.
for? Sold on me experience?
Soul bonding, bonding
Oh,
of
soul
souls.
bonding.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, exactly. Yes. It's soul bonding, and it's life changing. It's life changing. And a lot of people who move abroad do it through the avenue of teaching. And if you do that, like that's awesome. I would say go for it. I would say if you're not like wanting to be a teacher and you're just wanting to travel, like there are a lot of people who do that. There is the concern though that you will get burned out with your job very quickly. A lot of teachers who come to Japan, at least, because they just want to live in Japan and experience Japan, they get burned out so fast. And so if teaching is something you're really interested in, definitely go for it. But if it's not, like put some thought into it. See if there's maybe a different way you can get to the country. But with me, again, like I was saying before, I didn't intend to be a teacher, but I ended up falling in love with it. I love my students, and I love being able to work with them and have fun with them and grow them in their English abilities. So yeah, that it's definitely not for everybody, but if you're passionate about it, then you will love it. And as a person of color, you have so many opportunities to share, or rather a person who's a minority in their country, you have many opportunities to share about your culture and why you look different and why you think differently and why you do things differently with them. There's so many things that I've shared on my TikTok and Instagram about experiences I've had with my hair, my skin color, the questions that kids ask me about those things. And it's great to be like an ambassador for my people. Like it's great to be someone who can introduce these little 5-year-olds to such a large part of the world that they have no idea about. And even their parents really don't know much about either. And so you're really able to just share so much and help them to just you're able to shed light on something that these kids just would otherwise not really have much exposure to. So yeah, do it if you're interested. Try it at least. There's no long-term commitment. A lot of people, like first timers, do feel like a year is a long commitment because often contracts for things like that are a year, and it does feel long, but it's pretty short. It goes by so fast. I feel like it.
Oh, for sure. I blinked and all of a sudden I've been abroad for 8 years.
Right.
Just like flew right by.
It's so fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much, Patrick, for coming on the show.
Yeah,
I'm actually doing a how to find a job abroad free workshop at the end of May or beginning of June. So if you guys want to find a job abroad, understand how that process works out, go ahead and stick along with Wander Onwards. I'll send the details to Patrick as well. But we're trying to get as many people abroad and moving and just experiencing life, because as we saw from this year, like who knows how much time we have on this planet, or like just the flexibility to move. Patrick, where can
Yeah.
everybody find you to follow up with you?
You can find me on TikTok and Instagram and Twitter and YouTube and Twitch, all under the name The Paper Pat. The only difference in those names for Instagram is there's periods in between each of the words, the dot paper dot pat, but everything else is just The Paper Pat. So
What is Paper
yeah,
Pat?
you can find me there.
What does that mean?
So basically, before I first moved abroad to China, I was really inspired by YouTubers who were living abroad. Namely, do you know Rachel and June?
No, I
They're
don't. Who
pretty
are they?
famous. They're in Japan, so that's probably why. But they're a couple that makes YouTube videos talking about experiences, and they share a lot about their cats and like just life in Japan and how to do this and how to do that. But they really inspired me a lot when I was preparing to move to China. And so I was like, maybe I can be a YouTuber like that when I go to China. And so I was trying to think of like a clever name that's like original, but like that really would work for what I'm trying to do. And so I came up with the name The Paper Pat, which is supposed to be like it's supposed to represent like a newspaper, like giving out like new you know, the newest copy of the Paper Pat's here, like come get it while it's hot, sort of a thing. I don't know. Like meaning like my videos would be the new releases, basically. And so that's where the name came from. And then my YouTube channel, I like took it down for like the next 5, 6, no, more like 7, 8 years, because I was horrible at YouTube. And then I was going to start TikTok. My friend convinced me to do TikTok, and I was like, maybe I could use the same name and maybe connect the two, like get back into YouTube at some point. And so I used the name for TikTok and all the other things, and I've started YouTube again. I haven't uploaded a video in like 3 months, but I'm gonna get back into that soon. But yeah, so that's the Paper Pat.
Okay, cool. Well,
It's worked.
me and my cat, hold on, I have to show you him because he's Chinese.
Come here. Nice.
Come here, little guy. So me and Xiao Huang, he's Italian.
Xiao Huang.
Xiao Huang, which means little yellow. Wish you the best and like most fortuitous life moving forward. And thank you so much for coming on to Wander Onwards and sharing your story and what you're about and how you did it. We are eternally grateful.
Thank you so much, Vanessa and Xiao Huang.
Yep, there we go.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for having me.
Internet. Yeah, no problem.
I will see you. Yep. Thank you. Bye-bye.